All right. Today's parsha is the parsha of it's called Zechiras Amalek. The mitzvah to remember Amalek. The story of Amalek itself is related in the Torah much earlier in Pasha Shmois, in Chumash Shmois. The Milchama over there, and over there also, there's a command over there that you should remember to take revenge for Amalek. But in this parsha is a separate mitzvah that we have to remember what Amalek did to us. Everybody says it every day, I'm sure, right? In the Jesus Chiras.
After Elena. After Elena Tom.
Whatever. So there's a Sikh in the Rebbe where he brings down, he discusses a medrash on this parsha. But the medrash says that when Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Yidden, Zocher es asher osu l'cho Amalek, which means remember what Amalek did to you. So Yidden said to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's an interesting thing, Zocher is, you already told us Zocher is him Shabbos l'katshrei. And now you're telling us Zocher is asher osu l'cho Amalek. How can these two things be done simultaneously? Be done? It's an interesting measure. Why can't you remember two things? Can you remember 10 things? And Moshe Rabbeinu answered to them that this is comparable to two types of vinegar. And we'll discuss this in a moment. So first, what is the question that Yidden placed to Moshe, and then to understand what Moshe Rabbeinu's answer, and then, of course, as we always say, to understand where we come into this. The question that Yidden asked Moshe Rabbeinu is the following. When you say you should remember, remembering is not a one-time activity. Like do this, put on film. So put on film, and that's it. Either the film stay on you or they don't stay on you, but this is an action that takes a few moments and it's done. You're not continuously putting on film. Put them on and they're on. When you talk about remembering means that you have to keep it in mind all the time. Remember, you see, Shabbos l'katshrei. You keep it in mind all the time. So that still is not such an impossible thing. You can keep in mind two things. The Rebbe explains that the difficulty that Yidden were pointing out to Moshe is that if you say you should remember Amalek, you do not mean surely just remember Amalek came to fight us. Remember means remember the inference. The inference means the effect of Amalek. What Amalek tried to do, and remember, as the Rambam says, remember to hate him, and remember to eradicate him. In other words, remember the evil as element of Amalek. So if you say remember the evil of Amalek, then it becomes a bit of conflict. What is a conflict? A person, in terms of his emotions, can experience different emotions, like anger and hate and love and such a thing, anger and pleasure, but not at the same time. You can't be pleased and angry at the same time. You can't be in a state of Ava and Yira at the same time, because they are contradictory emotions. And this is what the Yidden was saying. You give us a mitzvah, Zocher Yishim HaShabbos HaKashri, which is a mitzvah that puts a person in a holy and a very pleasant state of mind. Zocher Yishim HaShabbos HaKashri, Dusha of Shabbos. At the same time you say, and this Zocher has to be constant. You have to always be in that state, remembering Yishim HaShabbos HaKashri, remembering the Dusha of Shabbos, remembering how Hashem created the world, and Hashem's presence is everywhere in the world. This is Mebus's world, and it's a holy world, and it has a Shabbos which denotes that holiness. This is all on the positive side. Then at the same time, you say, remember Amalek. What is remembrance of Amalek? Remember evil. The lowest type of evil there is. That's Amalek. Amalek is explained, Amalek was even more evil than the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael. The 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael, we were told that we may not allow them to live in our land. But we can allow them to evacuate. We don't have to destroy them. We don't have to chase them out of the world. When Yeshua came to Eretz Yisrael, he wrote them a letter to all the kings of Eretz Yisrael and said, we are coming to take our land, and you have the option, the freedom to evacuate. And one nation actually evacuated. The Yergoshi actually evacuated, and they saved their lives. There was no mitzvah for Eden to pursue the Knaanim and to kill them out. Amalek is different. Amalek, it's a mitzvah to eradicate Amalek, not only if he lives amongst you. It's a mitzvah to eradicate Amalek, which means because the evil of Amalek is such that Hashem Himself says this is a godly war. I have a war with Amalek. Chomal Hashem ba'Amalek. So this type of evil, which is complete opposite of Kedusha, of holiness. How can you maintain a state of mind, an emotional state of Shabbos, or Kedusha Shabbos, and the evil of Amalek? This is what Eden asked Moshe Rabbeinu. How is it possible? Moshe Rabbeinu responded to them. Yeah.
What is the... I don't see exactly the contradiction. Remembering Amalek, what's that supposed to... I mean, you said Shabbos makes...
Let me tell you a little story, so you'll understand. There was a Chosid with Tzemach Tzedek, and even before from Mittel Rebbe. It's called the Zalman Zesmer. However, Zesmer must be a city, but Zalman Zesmer. I think it was the stories about him. He was a very great Chosid and all that. I think I don't have it accurately. I think Zalman Zesmer is involved in the story, but the Chosid was actually Rabbi Yomi Kletzker, I think. Anyway, a great Chosid of the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek happens to be in the city where Zalman Zesmer lived. He was a great Lamdan. Like all Hasidim in those days were great Lamdan, were very great people before they became Hasidim. And he was there on Shabbos or Pashas Teitse. He was there in Shabbos Pashas Teitse. So when they came about Kriyas HaTorah and they're reading Zocheres Asheros U'Lecho Amalek, so this Chassid became red from anger. You could see on his face that he was burning up with anger. Amalek. So I think Salman Lezer or Rabbi Hillel Pacher asked him, said, where did you learn such hate of Amalek? So he said to him, Eden Lozno and Lebavitch, whichever generation it was. In other words, he sent him to the Rebbe. And then he became a chassid. In other words, the union of remembering Amalek is not just to remember, like I said before, to remember and say, oh, Amalek must be eradicated. It permeates the whole mitzvah, the whole person, to the point where he actually becomes red with anger. You understand? So if you're red with anger, can you at the same time be in the celebratory state of mind of Shabbos or Kedusha Shabbos? Doesn't work. That's what the question is. In other words, here we are dealing with the lowest type of klipa, which must be eradicated. Here we are doing the highest union of Kedusha, which has to be not only celebrated but experienced and elevated. It doesn't go together. So Moshe Rabbeinu answered them with a moshel. The moshel is, you have vinegar. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya actually brings us down. You have vinegar. Vinegar, it's impossible to drink vinegar. Drink vinegar. It's impossible to drink vinegar. Something that a person can, makes him, it'll make him sick. It's impossible. It'll burn him. It's impossible to drink vinegar. Huh?
Wine and vinegar.
Wine is not vinegar. Wine is before it became vinegar, but it became vinegar. It's not drinkable. Period. And then this vinegar, the same vinegar, if it is put in a proper, let's say, into a salad or into some kind of other food to bring out its richness, then the vinegar becomes instrumental to bring out the richness of the taste of the other food. Just like it's impossible to eat salt. But it's impossible to eat food without salt either. The salt brings out the taste. Without the salt, the food tastes like grass. So what is the, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu said. There is vinegar and there's vinegar. There's vinegar that is in a glass to drink. It's impossible. That's something that you reject. But then if the vinegar is used in a proper way to what's it called? Enhance. It's there's a word for it. To enhance the food, then the vinegar becomes a wonderful thing. And what is the point in terms of Zocher and the Avodah? The answer to this question, what Moshe Rabbeinu was giving them, as the Rebbe explains, it is as follows. He says, yes, indeed, Amalek represents a very low aspect, the opposite, opposing Hashem, opposing Kedusha. The Gemara describes Amalek as Yodeas Riboinu Mechaven Limrei, that he knows who the master of the world is, and he intentionally wants to rebel against him. This type of chutzpah, where you know who the master is, you know who created you, you know who gives you support, and intentionally want to rebel against him, is some kind of a fantastic type of mentality. Where does that come from? How is it possible to have that kind of mentality? Usually, a creature that was created, so he may not have the intelligence to try to find out who created me. He lives in his own thing. But if he is intelligent, and he knows clearly who created him, and knows clearly who feeds him, knows clearly where he gets all his chayas, and then he does not give any cognizance. Not only cognizance, he wants to destroy it. He wants to go against it. Where does that type of negativity, that type of power come from? It's irrational. It's unnatural. Right? If you're working for a boss, and the boss is not a good boss, and he's mistreating you, but he's giving you a check at the end of the week. Is it possible that he'll give you the check on Friday and you'll punch him in the nose?
No.
It's impossible. Not only is it impossible to punch him in the nose, he will say thank you. Even though, well, you, under the breath, you're cursing him out, but you will say thank you. Because after all, he is giving you support. There's some kind of recognition. Amalek has that strength of character on the evil side. To be able to rebel against his own creator, who he knows who that is his creator. Now, we know, we have all learned, that the Chassidus explains that there is Balei Tshuva and there is Tzadikim and Balei Tshuva. The Gemara says that Mokim Shebalei Tshuva Ein Tzadikim Gvurim Mecheirim Lamed. Where Balei Tshuva stand, the Tzadikim cannot stand. And this is discussed in various places in the Zohar and so forth, because the Baal Tshuva, and the Rambam also discusses it, the Baal Tshuva, due to the fact that he has known the other path and the path of evil, and he broke away from it. So this breaking away from the path of evil has propelled him with greater strength towards Kedusha, towards holiness. For many reasons. One is because he wants to dissociate from the evil, and for that you need special strength. And the other is because who else recognizes the goodness of holiness, but the one who experienced evil?
Well, experienced what?
Evil. He really knows what this is all about, better than anyone else. He appreciates it more than anybody else. So therefore, the fact that he was earlier in a negative state, in a state of evil, that itself propels him, that itself gives him greater strength towards Kedusha. This is like the vinegar enhancing the food and giving enhancement to the food. Now this is true in all aspects of tshuva. Even regular type of averos. Amalek, whose evil exceeds all else, because he was not a question of evil because he he liked the Taivas or whatever it is, he intentionally rebelled against Kedusha. He was waging war against Nevush. So this type of evil, this is the epitome of evil. Where did this type of character come from? How is it possible? The answer is that this strength, this type of quality is actually rooted in the highest levels of Kedusha. Because I'm in Kedusha, in holiness, in godliness, there is that level where there is nothing but Hashem. There's nothing but Hashem. Translate this level in Klippa, in evil, you would have that there is nothing but evil. And he rejects everything. In other words, the real source of his strength is actually from the fact that it is Hashem who creates the world. Recognizing the depth and the strength that is embedded in the world, which comes from Hashem himself, he then is able to transform it and become totally opposed to Kedusha. He gets his strength from Kedusha. Do we understand this? We don't. Okay.
Rabbi, just was one Amalek, no more. Is that Amalek?
One second. I'm trying to find, a way to explain a concept over here. We will use and illustrate this by examining something which we speak about all the time: the world perception, the evolution concept that the world believes in. What is evolution in principle?
Denying Hashem.
Excuse me?
Denying God.
Yeah. But there's such a beautiful world. What is the principle of evolution?
Circumstantial growth.
I'm sorry?
Circumstantial growth.
Right, but how does it happen?
Things change over time. Survival of the fittest.
Things getting better.
One point, that's what I was saying. The principle of evolution is that everything created itself. It evolved on its own. There is nothing assisting you. Everything evolved on its own. And this is a well-developed approach, and this is how this happened, and so forth, all the way to the point where a human being evolved from a monkey. As fantastic as this is, but it's possible they found ways to say it. Now, I'd like if you should understand, where is the principle behind this idea? How can anybody ever think that things just created themselves? It's an interesting thing. You know that there is a principle. This is a physical principle. There's we have no chance with that. That an object in space will continue to be in the state that it is, unless something else disturbs it. In other words, it will continue. If it moves, it will continue to move. If it stays still, it will continue to stay still, unless something interferes with it. That makes sense, right? Like this cup is not going to move unless I move it. Right? What is this? What is the principle behind that? This is a physical principle. This is not the true Torah principle. The principle behind that is that essentially everything exists in nothingness, in a vacuum. There's absolutely nothing that forces something to be one way or another. It's total vacuum, total nothingness. This total nothingness permits everything to be just the way he wants it. So that everything creates itself from this nothingness. This creature decided to be this way, to become this way, and there are thousands and millions of different species. Each one decided to develop in its own way. Why? Because there is no coercion, there's nothing, there's no limit. There's nothing that forces me to be one way or another. In other words, as a result of this primary principle, that there is no limit, there's no limit, there's nothing that forces me, that gave way to unlimited different species development. So that each species that exists according to this theory, I mean, we say that the Rebbe created everything, but this is the way human beings understand it. That each species chooses to be what it is. On what basis? On the basis that there's nothing that can interfere with who I am. I'll do whatever I want. I'll be the way I want. In today's world, this resulted in perverted thoughts in the human beings. They said, "Oh, you can be a human being upside down, but if you choose to be upside down, you'll be upside down. Nobody can tell you how you should be." In other words, all this is actually based on the great presence of infinity. This great presence of infinity has given way, has given the force, the basis for a thought of complete disarray. Who says that a human being has to behave this way? A human being can behave this way. Because it's unlimited provision, unlimited reality. So this is the pshat, that from the unlimited reality, this is where we have perversions. People come up with ideas that are completely perverted. And they say, it's okay. But it's a perversion. It's unnatural. It's evil. Why? What does that mean it's evil? There's unlimited possibility. So I choose to be this way. So this limitlessness, this greatness, this is what provides for the most extreme craziness. Amalek, who went to the most extreme evil of Yudea Sebim Chavalim, What provided him, what gave him the ability to make us a statement? The fact that the Rebbe is above everything. He's not affected by anything.
So you can do whatever
He can do whatever he wants. And he represents the Meibusher. He presents the Meibusher's presence as that ultimate reality of Hashem, who is totally unaffected by anything. That's the reality that I'm going to represent here. Or I do whatever I want. And I'm going to deny his presence. Why not? You understand? This is the pshat. Evil is rooted in the highest level of Kedusha.
And nothing stops him.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing stops him shows that he comes from a very high place where nobody stops him.
That's right. And this is the point. Amalek is the
foundation.
Excuse me?
That's like the foundation for Avodah Zarah. People think that God is above the world.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's all the different levels, but Amalek, this is the extreme. For a Nivra, there was in Russia there was a Tsar Nikolai. The Russian Tsars, generally the Tsars mean the kings, they were called the Tsars, were very evil. I mean, it's like an old tradition. Occasionally they had someone that's a little bit more softer, amicable, but I mean, generally speaking, in England, the king, generally speaking, cared for his people. Other places, in France, they were monsters. It all depended, And in Russia, they were evil kings. They were all into their own greatness and all that. There was a Russian. There was a queen in Russia. They were there, instead of a king, there was a queen ruling Russia, Tsarina. So this queen, they were waging war. They were going on war. They had a war against some. Russia was constantly expanding, conquering all their neighbors. They were at war. So her generals said to her that this battle is going to cost a lot of lives. Now listen to this. It's going to cost a lot of lives. Maybe it doesn't pay.
Maybe it doesn't pay?
Yeah, I mean, it's not justified. Many soldiers are going to die in this little piece of land. So this evil woman said, people are replenishable. Land is not.
People are what?
What?
Replenishable. Replenishable. They can grow back. Land does not expand. Does not replenish itself. Can you imagine that? So there was a Tsar.
What's the name?
I don't know.
Elizabeth.
Huh?
Serena.
Elizabeth? No. Elizabeth is in England. This is in Russia. No. Anyway, so there was this King Nikolai. This you probably all know because there was a whole system. The Cantonistans. You hear the Cantonistans? Yeah. You heard the Cantonistans. Cantonistans was a terrible decree coming out from Nikolai in an attempt to get Yidden to convert, Rahman Islam, to convert to their religion.
What was it called?
Cantonisten. They were called Cantonisten. I don't know exactly what the root of the word is. So there was a rule, a kingly decree, that Jewish boys should be conscripted into the army from age 5 till age 30, I don't remember exactly how. They would just grow up and their intent was that they would eventually force him to convert. This Cantonese constituted a large part of his army. You can imagine the evil. They used to grab the children. They used to kidnap the kids from their parents. It was a terrible thing. It's an unbelievable decree. It lasted for a long time. So I think that the Tzedek said that as Nikolai, he forgot that he was a created entity. He forgot that he was created. His evil exceeded the limits of a created entity. A created entity that knows some limit. He forgot completely that he was a created entity. So he's invulnerable. Invulnerable. So this is the evil of Amalek, rooted in the highest levels of Kedusha. The strength that he gets is rooted from the highest levels of Kedusha. And therefore, when you are Mevarer Amalek, when you remember to eradicate Amalek, what is the eradication of Amalek mean? That you're revealing the Kedusha element that was the source of Amalek. Say Amalek cannot be. The real thing is the Kedusha is Elokus. Therefore, by eradicating Amalek, you are revealing godliness at the highest level. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu answered them. Just like in the case of vinegar. Vinegar is not a very pleasant drink, but if it's used in a proper way, it becomes a very enhancing part of the food. Similarly, Amalek is the evil, but if it is done, if you're eradicating Amalek, if you remember Zocher is Amalek Timche to eradicate, if you remember the evil of Amalek, remember to eradicate it, that remembering to eradicate is pointing to the union that this evil is actually, and this koyach of evil actually belongs to godliness. And you have to eradicate it in order to reveal the real source. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu answered them. There's no contradiction. You can be involved in remembering the Kedusha of Shabbos, and at the same time involved in remembering to eradicate Amalek, because the aim of both of these is identical. Zocher Esim Shabbos Lakatshe is to remember the holiness of Shabbos, the holiness of godliness, and the mitzvah of eradication of Amalek is to remember also the godliness from which he comes from, to eradicate him in order to allow that the holiness to reveal itself in the world. So the aim is the same, even though this is the negative side of it and this is the positive side. This is through a negative activity and this is through a positive activity. Okay, we got a little bit of this thing. So now, in conclusion, we are going to, it's quite obvious, we're going to focus on ourselves a little bit and understand every person, all of us, have positive moments and negative moments. There are moments where we are into Kedusha, into davening and learning, and we actually are elated, are elevated. We feel the richness of it, and the goodness of it, and the holiness of it. And sometimes we are on the downside. You have to understand that the downside is also rooted in Kedusha. So that when we are rejecting, so to speak, the downside, when we are overcoming any kind of a negativity, this is not just overcoming a negativity. This is overcoming a negativity in order to reveal the positive aspect that provided for it, that allowed it to happen. For example, you get upset about something. Somebody wronged you or something didn't go right. I don't have to give examples of things that you get upset about. I'm not talking about it. You get upset. Somebody stepped on your toe, or you missed a train, whatever it may be. And you get upset. Now think about this. If you did not have an expectation that things should go right, you wouldn't get upset. You understand what I'm saying? You get upset only because you believe that things should go right. Who says that things have to go right? What's the answer? The answer is because I live in Hashem's world, and it's a good world, and things have to be right. And if they go wrong, I get upset. So this getting upset itself is in itself an indicator. It's rooted in your own perception that really things have to be right. And really things are right. The fact that it went wrong is an anomaly. You know what anomaly means? Everybody knows what an anomaly means? It shouldn't be. So when we reflect on this very true principle, we realize that really we are ourselves, we are living in a situation where we are constantly aware of the godly presence and the godly goodness and how things really are good. Otherwise we wouldn't get upset. There's a story, there's a saying like this. There's a saying, kind of an illustration of a point. Someone asked a question: who is more of a Baltiver, a rich man or a poor man? A rich man has his food all the time. A poor man is always hungry. So he says, if you put a plate of food in front of the poor man and a plate of food in front of the rich man, you can immediately observe what happens. The poor man immediately goes after the food. He eats it with both hands, and in no time the food is gobbled up. The rich man is sitting there. He picks up his fork, picks up his knife, puts it down, takes a little bite, looks around, chews it up. He seems to be not enticed by food. He's not a Baltiver. Right? The poor man is a Baltiver. He jumps into the food. The rich man, hey, let's take it easy. So,
it's true. It's wrong. It's doubles.
So the answer is, right? What is the real proof? The real proof is what happens if, as the rich man is holding the food in front of him, and the poor man is holding the food in front of him. The poor man is right all over it, and the rich man is just looking at it. You walk over and you take the plates away from them. Take away. Like in some chasanas, the waiters are anxious to clean up. They go, take it from under your hand. What'll happen? The poor man said, I didn't have it before, and said, okay, I'm used to it, I'm used to not having it. You took it away, you took it away. What is the rich man how's the rich man going to react? He's going to bang on the table.
I think you are.
He's going to scream. He's going to make a yitzaku. In other words, when you get upset, when it doesn't make sense. If you're used to it, then you don't get upset. In other words, our negative experiences and our fall down is actually proof that we are connected to real life, and therefore we have to use that strength that comes with it to overcome this negative feeling, and to use it to propel us to a higher level. So that next time when we do something wrong, we'll be even more upset. You understand? Because it doesn't make sense. How do I come to such a thing? So this is the Rebbe's explanation of Amalek, and this interesting medrash. This is, so to speak, a typical Rebbe explanation. I don't think you can find anything like this anyplace else. And this is one of the ways that it translates in daily life. When we are reacting in a negative way, we have the ability to reflect on what that represents, where that comes from, and to transform it into a positive thing. Just simply by reflecting that the fact that, as I said, the fact that it's upsetting means that really the world, that I expect it to be good. Instead of falling down and become despondent and be'atzvus, Chas v'sholom, this should be encouraging to become more besimcha. Look at this, you know. Okay? So the Rebbe should help that we should all be besimcha all the time, and we should not have any reason to be upset. But surely the Alter Rebbe says that a person is constantly on ups and downs. Why is it ups and downs? Because the process of growth requires a step down in order to rise up higher. This is the normal process of growth. Should Chas v'sholom not ever think in a negative way of our down state. Every down should be a source of strength to rise up. You understand that the down, in fact, represents a greater strength. Okay. Yes, sir.